like we had in the past, they're still issued on notes, and there's still debt. This idea, debt goes away. No, it doesn't. We still want to invest. We still want to build things. We still want to get loans. We don't want to have to save. I mean, in my parents' generation, they had to save further. My grandparents had to actually get 80% of their savings before they could get a loan of 20%. That's ridiculous.
Let's go back to your question about gold-based currencies. So gold itself versus the paper money that's backed by gold. I see those as two very different things. Would you agree or disagree?
What is gold? It's basically just a marker. So this idea that gold has value innately, it doesn't. Gold is not a marker. Gold is a physical commodity. Whether it has value is what people place on it. Right, so my question for you is gold versus the paper that backs a gold is two different things. In my example in China, in holidays, Mid-Autumn Festival, they give out mooncakes, something you can eat. That's a physical asset. And then what they do instead is they give out gift certificates, which you redeem for mooncakes. So my example I like to use in China is mooncakes, physical mooncakes that you can eat versus redeemable certificates for mooncakes. Those are two different things. One is asset, one is debt. And what's Bitcoin?
I think it's an asset.
I agree. It's an informational asset, but it's not being used that way at the moment.
Gold itself is asset as well. Would you agree?
Gold can be an asset.
It is.
Okay, so
generally it's used as an inflation
money, gold-backed paper money is different, right?
To me, gold-backed paper money is the same. It was a way to scale gold for day-to-day transactions, and it just failed. And the reason why that failed is because the governments can't stop printing money, and they had the ability to do it. So that's it. So Bitcoin is going to scale with Lightning. Bitcoin is a store of value. It has been for me, certainly, and for many people that actually understand Bitcoin. And maybe one day, hopefully, sooner than later, Bitcoin will eventually be like a unit of account. But I agree with you, Professor, 100% that... No, there's only one professor on the panel here. I agree with you, Professor, that everything other than Bitcoin is an outright nonsense, and it is a barter system of the Stone Age if you are going to have a Coca-Cola coin, the Pepsi coin, or anything else. That includes Ethereum and Litecoin and anything else.
So Tone has this idea that you can't seize Bitcoin, which next year you'll see is completely wrong, and a whole lot of people will be really, really annoyed, but too bad. And he has this totally wrong idea about Lightning scaling. The whole idea of Lightning was to not have records. Under MLD5, which is gold-plated here in the UK, there's a requirement to save every transaction. So when you're doing this, a Lightning node is a money handler. Don't care whether you like it or not, government's already said it is. That means if you're running a Lightning node, you actually have to maintain every record for every node connected to you. You end up with a factorial growth of the amount of logs compared to Bitcoin. You end up with a 6-month log period that you're required as an individual by law to keep, or you have committed a criminal offense. And you have evidence of an offense. This is what Bitcoin does. You have signed transactions showing where money goes. So he's got this system that doesn't really scale, that has security vulnerabilities and basically shits all over Bitcoin, that he says can scale because every person is going to have petabytes of information at home. Yay!
Wow, that is total nonsense, but I just want to mention that...
No, see, I only talk to people like I'm talking with people in the Law Commission. They wouldn't have any idea about law. I mean, I'm doing my Doctor of Law at the moment.
Of course.
And none of the professors have any idea of law.
How many documents are you working on right now?
2, actually.
Perfect. Can Bitcoin be confiscated one day? Can the Bitcoin blockchain break? It's possible. The thing is, it's very unlikely.
There's no break here.
The
record allocation doesn't mean breaking.
The question is, it's very unlikely. Like, how safe is your Bitcoin in your cold storage?
If you've committed a crime, and seized.
It's pretty safe. But is the Bitcoin blockchain perfect? Could there be something that completely breaks it? Sure. What you have to realize is anything else in the crypto space is infinitely more
So,
insecure.
If I may
So
kind
if
of
you think your
interrupt you here,
Bitcoin is going to
because
be
again,
confiscated,
I can feel we're
there's
just
like
going
one
down the
node
slope
on the
of
Bitcoin
the
SV chain.
crypto inside squabbles, really, because we have to be as generic as possible here. And my question, I'm just bringing you down on the right track here, really. It's identifying these flaws that are today, that can see today in the modern centralized financial system. Okay?
What does that mean? Centralized financial system. The Fed is 13
Central
entities. Well, there are over 100 central banks.
Yeah.
There are over 15,000 banks. There are over 100 currencies. You're talking centralized. Centralized what? What do you mean by centralized? Do you mean when you have the ability to pay in 1,000 different methodologies? That's centralized. Where you have companies enabling you to transact in over 50,000 different methods.
To me, centralized means just being in control of all the transactions, first and foremost, okay? That's
the thing that he's trying to build.
So, wrong, but where you're talking about that, you're talking about in control. The central bank doesn't control where notes go. The central bank doesn't
Would you agree with that,
money.
Professor Roubini?
I agree that actually what you refer to as a centralized financial system is not centralized. There are thousands and thousands of financial institutions. There are lots of means of payments. There are lots of different currencies. There are lots of central banks. So it's a system in which there is a significant amount of competition. There is all this fintech revolution. So people say it's terrible, it's a centralized system, but I'm not sure, honestly, what it means. And the alternative is not a financial system, is not even a currency, and is not even decentralized, because everything in the crypto world is centralized. So we're talking an artificial comparison with something like a boogaboo of centralized financial system, fiat money. I mean, you speak about fiat money, central banks have reacted to the financial crisis by doing quantitative easing, credit easing, zero policy rate, negative policy rate to avoid deflation. We don't have an inflationary problem today. If there's inflation among shitcoins. Every other day there is a shitcoin created out of fiat. The supply can be endless, thousands of them. The average one has lost 99% of its value, thousands of them. That's fiat money, right? That's crap that's created every other day.
No, for fiat money,
that's a system
my earlier
that is,
question was
just,
about
it's
printing.
not to do with decentralization.
So let me ask you, my earlier question regarding Max's question about a problem
not used
with the
by
current
anybody.
system. I'll just talk over him because he talks
Pretending
over
you're
me.
creating a different
So what do you guys
Please
think?
go
It's
one by
October,
one.
November next month. I mean, all right. So, Professor, the question about money printing. What do you think of that? I'd like to hear your comment on that. Fiat money printing. Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
There is nothing wrong with quantitative easing. There is nothing wrong with zero policy rates. There is nothing wrong with negative policy rates. There is nothing wrong with forward guidance. There is nothing wrong with anything the central banks are doing, because today we have a problem of lack of aggregate demand. There is a global savings glut. There is secular stagnation. And if during the global financial crisis, we had made the same mistake was done in 1930s of letting everybody liquidate, of no monetary easing, no fiscal easing, of backstopping the financial system, we'd have ended up with a Great Recession becoming Great Depression 2.0. This recovery has not been great, but we've learned the lessons of the past where there was no monetary policy. We have central banks, we have a lender of last resort, and that saved the system. That's why the system has worked. Okay, has worked.
So it has worked by your definition. But for me, this money, not this physical one, but I moved to the United States in 1989, 30 years ago. And I remember $100, it had a small Benjamin Franklin head. Some of you have seen that. It was worth so much money. It could do so much for me over a weekend, pay for lunch, pay for dinner. My question for you is, over 30 years, I had the same bill. I hold it for 30 years. Is it fair, is it good that today this piece of paper is worth much less than it was 30 years ago? Is that fair? No. It's fair,
it's just
really?
one of the laws of finance.
Any shitcoin in a matter of 24 months has lost
I don't
99% of its value.
But that's like me saying Zimbabwe dollars has lost 100% value.
There is no inflation in the US.
Compare.
There is no inflation in Europe.
Sir.
There is no inflation in the
I am not using a shitcoin here. Do you call this a shitcoin?
No, that's not the shitcoin.
Then I don't compare Zimbabwe dollars with your money, okay? Don't bring up shitcoin if I don't bring up Zimbabwe dollars.
Fiat currencies are perfectly fine.
Really?
They're perfectly
really?
fine.
Hold on a second, sir.
Compared to your system of shitcoins,
I don't.
they're
Hey, wait a minute.
100%
I don't support shitcoins.
Yes, you do.
You support shit
There
fiat.
is nothing wrong with the
It's
US
like me
dollar.
saying you support shit
Sorry.
fiat.
It's a
Are you
unit of
behind the
account,
Zimbabwe
it's a
dollars?
means of payment,
Are you behind
it's
the
a
Argentina
stable store of
peso?
value.
Are you behind the Venezuela bolivar? Are you behind the Indian rupee?
There are 200 currencies in the world. 2 or 3 of them are
There are
failing.
thousands
Most
of
of them
shit
are
coins.
fine.
I don't care about the shit coins. I'm talking about the US of D. US of A, the US dollar.
Everybody wants the US dollar. No one wants
Let
the
me
shit
ask you,
coins. That's the
for the
reality.
US
I'm
dollar,
sorry to
this
say.
US dollar, 30 years ago, it was worth a lot to me, and the same piece of paper is worth a lot less to me today. Is that cool?
Inflation is less than 2%.
Is that cool?
Is
If
less
you
than
left it in the
2%.
bank, it would
3%
be-
less than
There are plenty
1%.
of ways you
Give
can
me a
hedge.
break.
There are
Give
plenty
me a
of
break.
ways you can hedge yourself against inflation.
That is not acceptable, okay? Your answer is not acceptable. You're avoiding the topic. You're avoiding the question. My question
There
is
are
simply for the
thousands
US
of
dollar.
There are thousands of shitcoins that have been debased overnight
I
within
don't
not
care about
100
shitcoins.
years.
I'm not asking
within
about
12
shitcoins.
months.
It's like me
okay?
asking about the shit, the
So
dogma
the question,
in
what's
your,
the alternative?
in your
I'll take
garden.
I'll take
What-
your $100 bill against any shitcoin you want to give me.
We're not talking about shitcoins here. I'm talking about the shit in your toilet. Your shit in your toilet stinks. It smells.
Well,
and we're talking about that.
This is where
We're not talking about that.
This
We're
is
talking
where-
about the US dollar fiat money, the king of fiat money, the US dollar, against Bitcoin. I love it. That's why I have
unfortunately,
it. But my question is,
I have
should
to
this go
agree
down
with
in
Nouriel
value?
on most of this. You know, just like in 1999, 99% of the internet startups failed, and probably 90 to 99% of the crypto projects are also going to fail, and most of them are shitcoins. Though we did get eBay, we did get Amazon, things did come out of the internet that still benefit us today. You know, the one area where we differ is I do believe that the work that we're doing here is going to deliver long-term positive implications. Where I disagree with many is I don't know where that innovation is going to come from. All of these experiments are iterative tests, and if anyone succeeds in making the world a better place, we all win, which is why I encourage Craig Wright and everybody else to continue to innovate, because we don't know where the answer is going to come from, and anyone that thinks they knows the answer today very well could be wrong.
Lovely.
All right, I want to comment on that last part later, but I want to add something to what Bobby was saying. Let's be happy that there is at least one paper currency in the world where a 30-year-old bill can still be worth something, because I don't think anyone can hold up a paper bill from any other country from 30 years ago and it having any value at all, because every country has canceled their paper currency completely in the
pounds?
last 30 years. So think about
We have
that. when you-
pounds.
and eventually, and the reason why the U.S. Well, your paper pounds from 30 years ago
Well,
are still worth
I
something.
think
They're
my pound
canceling them
coins
now.
don't work
You
anymore.
have
All
to-
my old
you have
pound
to turn
coins,
them in
my
for
sterling
plastic
coins,
ones.
are no longer in circulation.
they're canceling.
I've got hundreds of
30-year-old
pounds.
He's talking about
There are
small
5-pound
notes,
notes that
They're
have been
canceled.
canceled.
and
Absolutely.
they're still
They're
valid. You can
canceled.
still redeem
They're all
them.
going to be canceled because
So-
because the government wants you to turn your money because of
By the
surveillance.
way, the 30-year-old
another reason why you have
US
Bitcoin.
dollar isn't the same as the current one.
But
So
it's
the
still,
argument
but it's
paper.
still working. But it's still working at least, right?
So are 30-year-old pounds.
So
I can
some
still take them
countries-
to the bank and deposit them.
Hello.
So that's just bullshit. I mean, it's more tone-based bullshit.
If your grandfather hid a suitcase of cash 50 years ago and you found it, it's worth nothing. Nothing.
Do you realize
No, they won't. They've been
you
canceled.
can take it to the bank.
They've
He
been
likes
canceled.
to lie. You can take it to the bank and they give you new notes.
No.
Oh no, I get a £50
Okay,
note for my
my
£50
Italian
note.
lira.
Oh,